Okay, so I think we can get started. Hello and welcome to the funding year 2022 Come File With Us Form 470. I'm Kyle Lewis. I'm with Libraries Connecting Texas, part of E-Rate Central. I'm also joined by Jennifer Williams and Tegan Vick, who will be on the call answering questions as we walk through the Form 470 for funding year 2022. We're also joined by Jean Austin. Jean, if you have any questions as we go through the process, please don't hesitate to offer those up, and we can discuss those questions, and these may be answers that are useful to other libraries as well. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start at the ECF, not ECF, my apologies, EPC, E-Rate Productivity Center portal login. Okay, I'm currently sharing my web browser. And this is going to look a little bit different from what you are going to be logging into. Hello, Elsie, welcome. So let's all take a second to go to the EPC portal login. That's where we're going to be starting today. Keep in mind, if you have not signed in to the EPC portal recently, you will need to likely reset your password, as the password requirements for the EPC portal are reset each 3 months. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to that site, and that site is this link right here, forms.universalservice.org/portal/login. However, you might find it easier to go to the usac.org site and then click on sign in. This is what it should look like on your screen. And from there, we can click on continue, and this will take us to the login page. Under username, you'll want to enter your library's, the email address that you have set up for your library's EPC account. What we can do is we can, on my side of things, it's going to look a little bit different. And we're going to use a practice login that we have here for IND library number 10297. That's basically just a sample library name. If you have any issues with logging in, please ask a question in chat or raise your hand. I think there's also a Q&A box that we can check as well. If you at any point during the webinar get delayed, or you have any issues with keeping up, please let us know, and afterwards we will also have a recording of this webinar that will be available on the LCT YouTube page. We're also going to be having another webinar on the same subject, the funding year 2022 Form 470, and that will be on Tuesday of next week, and I believe that is at 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. So, from your applicant landing page, there's multiple ways that you can create a new Form 470, but the quickest one will be to click on FCC Form 470. And that can be found in this field of blue links in the upper right-hand corner. If you already have a draft Form 470 open, or we have sent you a Form 470 for certification, then you will instead want to go to Tasks, and you'll be able to click on Tasks and find a draft Form 470 available to either continue editing, or once you're ready to certify and submit, certify from there. But for a new Form 470, we're going to, from My Applicant landing page, click on FCC Form 470. This will take us to a new tab and bring us to the first thing we'll need to enter, the application nickname. We recommend making this something that is very easy for you to identify. So what we can do is we can type in 22 or 2022. I am going to write in sample library. You can type in your library name. This is going to be a Category 1 application that we'll be discussing today, and that is for internet access and transport. So from there, this can be a Cat 1, or it could be just C1 for Category 1. From there, we'll want to click on Save and Continue. Do not click on Save and Share, but if you do click on Save and Share, I'll just show you what happens real quick with that. Save and Share is going to make it available for editing for all other full and partial rights users that are added to the library's list of users. That will include LCT members and anyone else with your library who has an account that is associated with the ECF account, or EPC account, my apologies. Once you do this, it will show up back in your Tasks tab, and later on you'll be able to open it from there and go back to editing it if you so choose. Or another user added to the library's account can also open it and edit. So if we are helping you draft a Form 470, then that's how we're doing it. We're going through the Save and Share option. So we'll click No, for example, for now, and continue with drafting the Form 470. Save and Continue. This will bring us to a page with recipients of service. The example that we have here is an independent library. However, you may be with a library system that will have multiple billed entities under it. And in that case, you should check to make sure that each of the libraries in the library system that will be receiving these services discounted by E-rate are under that list. If not, please let us know, and we can help direct you in the right way to make those updates. And then from here, Save and Continue. Consultant information for applicant users such as yourself, you should see E-rate Central up here, because that is who I am with, and who Tegan and Jennifer and the other LCT team members are with. That should be reflected there. For contact information, we'll want to make sure that the main contact person is you, so you will click on Yes. And then your first name and your last name will show up here, and the email and phone number associated with your account will show up there as well. Moving on, we'll Save and Continue. From here, you can choose to make the Form 470 a form for either Category 1 or Category 2 services. Today, we're going to be discussing Category 1 services, but if you are planning on filing for Category 2, you can do so by clicking on that button. If you have a Category 2 project in mind for internal connections, basic maintenance of internal connections, or managed internal broadband services, please reach out to lct@eratecentral.com, and we would be happy to discuss contracting for consulting services outside of the Category 1 consulting that we do along with the Texas State Libraries. But for now, Category 1 will be our selection, and we'll click on Save and Continue. RFPs for service requests. Is there an RFP for any of the services you are requesting? RFP in common terms could be a request for proposal. For the Form 470, it is going to be any document that is attached to the Form 470 as additional information about the services that are being requested. In this case, we should be working with the LCT libraries that are filing for a Form 470 this year. We should be working with them to provide them with a service specifications template, which I will show in just a moment to show you what that looks like. This is the service specifications template that we recommend using for your library and as an attachment to the Form 470. It provides a number of additional specifications about the internet access that you want to be seeking for the library. And this is a fillable template, and if you hover over the lines, it should show you what needs to be entered in each of these fields. So going over this quickly, a library name, I will enter sample library. And you'll notice that by typing it up here, it also auto-populated it down into the body of the service specifications template. The build entity number, this is the number that your library is identified by within the EPC portal. It's something that is reflected on essentially all E-rate forms that you will be filing. So it is a good thing to have on record and make sure that you have ready whenever you file a E-rate form. As an example, we'll just type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yours should be likely not that, but if you have any questions about your build entity number, please also reach out and we can help direct you to that information. So further down in the body of the service specifications, we'll have the address. And this is a field that is going to be dedicated to the physical address of the site where the library is going to be receiving internet. So please don't put in the mailing address if that is a PO box, for example. We'll just want the physical address for the site. 1, 2, 3 site drive. The library currently has blank bandwidth. Your current bandwidth is something that should be reflected on your current internet bill. So take a moment to check your current internet bill and see what that may be. If you have trouble finding this, please let us know, and it may be something that's also reflected in your current internet contract, which is something that it will be useful for filing the Form 470 as well. When typing in the bandwidth, it will be useful to type in, for example, we'll say that this sample library currently has 100 megabits per second. We definitely recommend typing in the entire either Mbps if you have megabits per second, or if you have 1 gigabit per second or over, 1 Gbps. And then we're going to consider that is automatically going to fill into this line down here. And that is because you want to request services that are at a minimum equal to what you are receiving already, just so that you're not losing out on current internet bandwidth and losing out on that capacity that you already have. This is going to be essentially a range of bandwidths that you are searching for service within. So starting with your current service up to whatever your highest desired bandwidth might be, I would recommend entering something that is a little bit higher than what you might even imagine the library might need, only because it leaves room for growth. And if you enter a multi-year contract at a certain bandwidth, at least having the additional higher limit on the Form 470 will help allow you to make amendments to that contract later on that allow for that higher bandwidth while still keeping within the limitations of that original Form 470. Otherwise, you may need to file a new Form 470 in a future year when you do upgrade that bandwidth to a higher level of service than what you are, what you have currently. So just keep that in mind. We don't want to go crazy and put anything like really high, but just some room for growth is respectable. Additionally, this is going to be something that will fill in down here. All contracts must allow for bandwidth increases up to, we'll just want to, okay, I'm realizing this template has a couple of formatting issues, so I'm going to make some corrections to that after we're off the call here. Further down, we have the timeline for the Form 470. So it is important to keep track of this timeline as it progresses. We're starting with the Form 470 RFP posted in EPC date. So the date that it is certified, and let's assume that we are certifying this today and say November 10th, 2021. It might even make sense to type it out fully just to be sure that you have the right date there. Deadline to submit questions. We typically recommend a 10-day Q&A period during which vendors and service providers can submit questions about the Form 470 if there are any questions that they might have. because during this period, you might receive a question that is good and something that will clarify, what service you actually need for the library there. So we're going to enter November 20th, 2021. Do keep in mind that, do keep weekends in mind, however, because November 20th is a Saturday. You might want to consider extending that to November 22nd, which will be the Monday following that weekend there. Once you reach the end of that period, you'll want to take a look at all the questions you receive and draft some answers. If you have any questions about the questions you received, or if you want help drafting answers that are appropriate to those questions, let us know and reach out to LCT, and we can help you work through those. Because one day following that question deadline, we will want to take a moment to upload the document that includes both the questions and the answers to those questions into the EPIC portal, the EPC portal, as an RFP. And again, an RFP is pretty much any document that is attached to the Form 470. So with that additional information from the questions and answers period, that is going to be what kicks off the 28-day timeline in which bids can be submitted and proposals can be submitted on the services you are requesting in the Form 470. So taking a look at a calendar after, so 28 days is 4 full weeks. November 23rd plus 4 weeks is going to put us at December 21st. Now, especially as we reach the holidays, please be mindful of any period of time in which you're not going to be able to address the items on this timeline, because you may want to consider rewriting the timeline just a little bit to extend around those. But we definitely recommend not shortening any of these deadlines, these progressions. So 10 days at least for the Q&A period. The Q&A document should be posted the day after you receive those questions, and once you have those answers. And then the last date to submit proposals should be 28 days or more after any additional information is added to the Form 470. That brings us down to the section about questions and proposals. They are going to be sent to likely you, the library contact name. So we're just going to type in a sample name and a sample email address. So whatever your name and email address might be. We are also added as intended recipients for questions and proposals. We are hoping that all vendors and service providers will include us on those emails as well, so that we can help you monitor them. But if you notice that we are not included on one of those emails that you receive for either questions or proposals, please make a note of the ones that you receive, because there are things that will need to be reviewed either at the end of the question and answer deadline in that timeline we discussed, or at the end of the bidding period, the 28-day period in which proposals can be submitted. So best practice is just, save everything that you receive from vendors regarding the Form 470. So from here, what we can do is we can save a copy of this template, and if you save it to your local computer, it's something that you'll be able to upload onto the Form 470, and we'll switch back over there now. So that brings us back to, yes, so that brings us back to the Form 470 in the EPC portal. Is there an RFP for any of the services you are requesting? Yes, and that will be the service specification sheet that we just took a look over. So there's an uploaded option. You can either click on this, and it will bring up the Windows Explorer option to find the file that you need to upload there, or you can click and drag the file directly into that section there. So I'm going to click and drag it, reviewing it. This is what it looks like. Let's go ahead and click and drag it into that box. And please take note that the file name needs to contain certain characters and needs to disinclude certain characters. So the reason why I get this error message, the file name you've uploaded contains characters that are not allowed, that is because we have a dash in that file name. So I'm going to take a second to update that file name. And there we go. No more error message. I think the only punctuation you can include in these is spaces and underscores. So just keep that in mind, because you'll want to make sure that it is something that gets attached. From here, we can save and continue. Go ahead and click on this box, and this is going to make it so that the service specifications document that we just uploaded there is going to be applied to all the service requests that you include on the Form 470. From here, we are at the service request screen. We are going to add a new service request. And this is something you'll notice is a little bit different from either last year or the last time that you filed a Form 470. There used to be a series of drop-down menus here that have been changed just a little bit. So currently we're going to be looking at these bubbles here. So you're going to want to select I seek bids for internet access and or data transmission service. That then brings us now to a new set of bubbles. From here, if you read over these, it should make sense that there's only one of these that is going to apply to the vast majority of you, and that is going to be I seek bids for internet access and data transmission service. There are niche cases where internet access without data transmission service and data transmission service only, and I want to build my own network. these are rare cases that we should talk about one-on-one if you are considering something like that. But in most cases, libraries will be requesting internet access and data transmission service. So let's click on that. That brings up a new set of bubbles. And we're going to click on I seek bids for internet access and data transmission services, whether offered by one service provider as a bundled package or offered by one or more service providers as independent service. I seek bids for data plans or wireless adapters for mobile devices. This is something that may be applicable to bookmobiles, but if you are considering internet access for a bookmobile, please reach out to us and we can help you work on what that might look like for a bookmobile. So for a standing site, I seek bids for internet access and data transmission services. So in quantity is going to be referring to the number of direct circuits that are in this that are applicable to your library. For most independent libraries, this is going to be a quantity of 1 and a number of entities served 1. Things are a little bit different for library systems. You might receive multiple different lines to each of those libraries, or you might be using a WAN network, wide area network that connects the libraries. If you are part of a library system, please speak to someone with LCT, and we can discuss what that may mean for the library system and all of the libraries that are part of that system. For this example, we are using an independent library, so we have a quantity of 1, number of entities served 1. Are you also seeking installation, activation, and initial configuration for this service? Typically, let's go ahead and say yes. And at least that way, if there are any charges that are associated with installation, activation, and initial configuration, then they may be something that can receive an any rate discount. But by clicking no, we remove that possibility altogether. For minimum capacity, we are going to select take a look back at your service specification sheet. The minimum capacity is going to match whatever's on that. However, you'll notice that these are at different thresholds. So if you are requesting a minimum capacity for bandwidth that does not match one of these options here, go ahead and select the option from this drop-down menu that is just below that option. So if I was requesting a 75 megabit per second line, I could select 50 megabits per second. The service specification sheet is really useful because it can provide that additional detail even when the Form 470 itself has some of these certain limitations to it. So on our service specification sheet, we had, on the sample one anyways that we have here, we had put 100 megabits per second as the minimum. Or, you know what? I believe we actually put 1 gigabyte per second, yes. So taking a look back at that, it's 1 gigabit per second. So always good to double check, always good to review the information you've already entered into other forms, just to make sure that things check out everything looks good. For maximum capacity on that service specifications, we put 5 gigabits per second, GBps. Something to be wary of as you go into these drop-down menus. They will, at the highest end, they'll have the highest bandwidth at 100 gigabits per second. And then at the bottom, that is where they'll have the lower bandwidth. So if, for example, if you are trying to request 100 megabits per second internet access, just make sure that you're selecting 100 Mbps further down the drop down and not 100 Gbps at the very top there. And here, this is, please select the RFPs that apply to this service request. On one of the previous screens, we had an option to apply the RFP, the service specifications template that we attached to all service requests, and that's why this is checked automatically. But make sure this is checked, and that will make sure that that RFP is attached to the service request. In the case of a library that is seeking, or a library system that is seeking multiple circuits of different bandwidths, or seeking multiple different types of service, they might want to consider the save and request, save and create another request button. But for us, we are just going to click on Save Request for the one circuit to the single library. This brings us now to the narrative section. And the narrative is something that we have a template example available for LCT libraries to use. Bear with me for a second as I pull that up and share that screen. Okay, so this is the sample narrative wording that we have available in this paragraph at the top. Keep in mind that we'll be needing to use the state and local procurement restriction language down here further on in the Form 470, but it is not something that we will be including in the narrative. So what we can do is we can copy and paste this information over into the Form 470, but we might want to take a second to update it while it's in here, just so we have it ready. So you can type in your library's name. Sample public library is what I just entered there. This is going to match the information on the service specification sheet. The library is requesting proposals from, and you'll notice it says blank Mbps/Gbps. You'll just want to delete the option of those that you're not using. So for our sample, we used 1 Gbps up to 5 Gbps. But if you're looking at bandwidth ranges starting in the megabits per second, then you'll delete the Gbps section instead, and then just make sure it says the right letter there, either Mbps or Gbps. If you have any questions about bandwidth speeds like that, please reach out to us and we can help walk you through it. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this narrative over into the Form 470. There we go. If you notice any formatting issues, I don't believe there should be any with the direct copy and paste, but if you run into something like that, please let us know. And I'll just want to make sure that that template is corrected for formatting there. So the installment payment plan. Are you seeking an installment payment plan for the non-discounted portion of any special construction charges associated with the request listed above? Special construction charges are often associated with the, most often associated with the installation of fiber services. So if you accept a proposal for fiber services, this installation plan, payment plan option would allow you to, pay that off in an installation, either monthly or annually. And these options here, these drop downs, just give you a range of number of years that you could amortize those costs over. So typically selecting 1 as the minimum number of years and then 4 as the maximum just gives you the most flexibility there. And then depending on what your library budgeting might look like, annual or monthly might be a better option. Let's just say monthly for the sake of this sample here. And then we'll save and continue. This brings us to the technical contact person. Some libraries may have a specific technical contact that you want questions about the Form 470 and the internet access directed to. And if that's the case, you can click on yes. And if they're already added as a user in EPC, you can search the EPC system, or you can enter the details manually, providing their information there. If you do have a technical contact person who is contracted out through what may be considered a service provider, please let us know, or default to no for technical contact person. Defaulting to no for this question will make it so that all questions are directed only to you as the Form 470 certifier, as well as any questions that they include lct@eraidecentral.com on. From here, we will save and continue. This now brings us to the state or local procurement requirements. If you remember, we saw that a moment ago on that same template document that we had for the narrative. So let's go ahead and click on yes, and that is going to bring up this box into which we can copy and paste those state and local procurement requirements. And I will momentarily share my screen as we look over that information. Okay. Heading back to the procurement requirements, we're going to copy and paste the paragraphs for the state and local procurement restrictions. And we're going to head back over to the Form 470 and paste that in. This is talking about essentially a number of restrictions and procurement requirements that the service provider should follow. These are concerning E-rate rules, and these are concerning Also, some new additions to the rules revolving around equipment from certain manufacturers related to national security. So this is a good measure to put into your Form 470 to help protect the procurement process for the library. From here, this essentially finishes the draft, and you are going to take a second to review FCC Form 470. You'll get a message that says when the FCC Form 470 is ready, a task will become available to complete certification. And that is going to show up in your Tasks tab up here in the upper left-hand corner on this blue bar. So let's go ahead and click on Tasks, and that should bring us to this page. And you'll notice that number just got bigger, and that means that I have one more task there than I had before. And you'll want to reference this top one here that says whatever that most recent one is there, and you'll know that it's the one to certify because it came in a moment ago. Let's go ahead and open it up. And what we have here are a few options. If we click on the blue link for the name of the download document link, let's go ahead and click on that. And that is going to download a copy of the Form 470. And I would recommend taking a look at that copy, opening it up, reading through it to check for any typos and make sure everything matches what it should be. Check to see if the service specifications match the information on the service request and in the narrative. Just read over the draft, and if you see any errors, go back and correct them. If not, you can go back to this page and click on by checking this box, I certify that the information in the PDF document above is correct. So once you're ready for that, you have two options down here. You will want to click on Continue to Certification. Send for certification is something that we will sometimes do on the consultant side, because we can click on Send for certification, and that is going to share it with all users for the library there. So that would be something that you could receive later in the Task tab there. But you, as someone certifying it, will want to click on Continue to Certification. You'll want to click on Yes, and that is going to bring you to the certifications page. You will want to check each of these boxes, and these are all pertaining to your following E-rate rules. It reflects a lot of the information that we've included in the service specifications, regarding the timeline, regarding, the bidding process, regarding a number of E-rate rules. So please feel free to read over these, and if you have any questions about these, please let us know, and we can, come up with a simpler explanation, I think, for some of these. I think there's an easy joke here about, selling your firstborn, but it's not all that bad. So, and some of you have done this multiple times in the past several years. So I think this is, it's a form. All right, let's go ahead and click on Certify. When you're ready to certify, you'll get this box about false statements on this form may result in civil liability or criminal prosecution. Part of the reason why reading the draft, just to make sure there's no typos on there, is useful. And then let's go ahead and click on yes to certify. That brings us back to the task tab. And after several seconds, maybe a full minute, I believe you're going to get a I might be mistaken on that. For the Form 470, what you can do to review a copy of it is you can go back to My Applicant Landing Page, and you can do that by going to Reports, My Applicant Landing Page. And from here, you can scroll down, and at the bottom, you'll see an option to search for forms, FCC Form 470, and this is for the upcoming funding year 2022. So we have that there. You'll want to select the one that you most recently certified. You likely should not have all these forms here. This is because this is a sample account. But if we consider the status, sample library C1 is the one that we just certified a second ago. Clicking on that, it brings us to the Form 470 laid out in a different way. And this includes all the information that we just entered on there, the service request, the contact information, the narrative, the technical contact, the state or local procurement requirements. If you click on View RFP Documents, that will open up an option to open any RFP that's been added. That includes the service specifications. If you click on that, it'll download a PDF copy of that service specifications request. And yeah, so this is something that you can return to later when you are uploading a copy of your Q&A document. Because as soon as this is posted, that sets off the timeline on that service specifications document, and you'll be receiving questions potentially in the next 10 or so days. Be mindful of the timeline and be mindful of that last day for receiving questions. Be mindful of any questions you receive, and away we go with the proposal timeline. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about the Form 470 or would like to view a recording of this webinar at a later time, please reach out to us. We will have a recording of either this webinar or potentially the webinar being held next week on Tuesday, and that is Tuesday the 16th at 10 a.m., in which we'll be holding a similar webinar discussing the Form 470. All right. Do any attendees have any questions about the Form 470 that we can answer now? If not, we definitely appreciate everyone who joined the call, and we definitely appreciate you taking the time to, join us and learn about the Form 470. If we don't have any questions, I'll end the call in a moment, but thank you again for joining us. And Jean, we have Okay, Gene. I'm going to allow you to talk, or you can type in your question if you have one there. Gene? Gene, are you there? Okay. Well, if you're experiencing some technical difficulties, please reach out, and I'll be happy to discuss your Form 470 for your library shortly after this call. Thank you again, Gene. I look forward to speaking with you, and thank you for everyone who attended. Okay, so Gene asks a really great question. Gene's question is about Category 2 requests. Something that is useful to have before considering a Category 2 request is having essentially a list of equipment and having a list of any Category 2 services in addition to that equipment that you are considering for the library. And if you send it as a list like that, we can help determine if that's something that you would like to contract with eRate Central directly on, or how you may want to proceed with those items. That is understandable, Gene. I definitely recommend you speak to any technical person that is right. And once you do speak with the school tech person, I think that's a good first step to take regarding the Category 2 items. And just so you may want to consider, so if you are waiting on receiving that list until after you've talked to the school tech person, then there's not really much action that can be taken with the Form 470 if you do not have a working list of items you would request on that. Typically, it's best to file the Form 470 as soon as possible, but keep in mind that in winter, typically, and for the past few years, the Form 471 window is the real big restriction on that. That is something that the past few years has opened up in January. Oh, or Gene, are you talking about should you file the Form 470 for Category 1 before you receive an answer from the school tech person? I see. My apologies for the misunderstanding on my part, and thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that to light. You can file these totally separately. There is so one Form 470 can be for Category 1 services, and then at a later time, you can file a Form 470 for Category 2 services. And they will be pretty much entirely separate but there's no time like the present for the Category 1 Form 470 if that is something that you are ready to start. And thank you, Gene. I apologize for the misunderstanding on my part, but I'm glad that we got there. All right. Well, thank you, Gene, and thank you everyone who attended. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us at lct@eratecentral.com. And our LCT hotline, which is 516-801-7820, to discuss any of these Form 470 matters that you have, for your respective library. Thank you again for attending.